Okay, what we're looking at today is matrices and graphs. This whole chapter is about statistics. So I'm going to start you out with this, and then we're going to lead into some other types of graphs. Some we're just going to look at, some we're actually going to learn how to make, like when I taught you how to make the circle graph. Okay, so what is a matrix? Okay, not this matrix. All right, this is a matrix. So is this. Okay, so in a matrix, numbers are arranged in rows and columns. The number of rows and columns in that order are called the dimensions of the matrix. So if you're taking notes, these would be two good vocab words to write down. We got the definition of a matrix, and we've got the dimensions of the matrix. That will come up again. Okay, so the dimensions of this matrix. Okay, when you find the dimensions, you just take the rows by the columns. Now keep in mind, we're not going to use the titles, okay, just the data. Okay, so for example, if I was to highlight just the data, let's make that a little bigger. Okay, that's going to be anything in this area. Okay, so it's not going to be your titles over here or on the top. Okay, so the dimensions in our matrix then would be a 16 by 9, and that's the way you would write that. So the dimensions of this one, well, let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows by, so here we have 8 rows. And then this is a title, okay, even though it's numeric, you just look at the data. So our data is over here, so we have 2 columns. Okay, so that's going to be an 8 by 2. All right, so what is the number in the 5th row, 2nd column? So again, don't use the titles. So the 5th row down is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And the 2nd column, well, that would be this number right here. Okay, because I'm in the 2nd column of data, I'm in the 5th row of data. So that's going to be 14, the answer to our first question. Second question, well, what does it represent? Well, if I go to the top, it's DMFT, okay, for subject 5. And I look down here, DMFT, this must be for a dentist because it's talking about the different types of teeth, okay? So it's your decayed, missing, and filled teeth for subject 5. All right, this would be another matrix in spreadsheet format. Okay, so in this chapter, we're going to talk about all different types of graphs. Like I said, we're going to analyze some of them, we're just going to read some of them, and we're going to actually make some of them. Okay, so this would be a line graph. All right, we've got our labels across the bottom. In this particular one, it was the months of the year 2004, and up our side is going to be our data, and in this one, it's in units of kilograms. This one happens to have 3 sets of data. We've got it all color-coded here. Product X, okay, and then we have product Y, and then we have product Z. So you can compare the 3 of them all in the same graph. This one's called a line plot. You may have done these in other math classes. Basically, this is really good for taking a survey. When you're walking around and you're just asking different people of their shoes, in this particular case, and you just put a little X, okay, so for whichever one it applies to. It lets you see quickly which one is the most, in this case walking shoes, lets you compare the 3, so that's an advantage to this one. It's not that exciting, but you know, it does get the point across and what you need. This was called a circle graph or a pie chart. This one is actually on pie. So they must have done a poll maybe of what people prefer, cherry pie versus pumpkin pie, pecan, coconut cream, or apple. They chose to put the percents. When we did it in class, I said, well, you know, that's not the most exciting. It would have been a little more interesting to see how many people they polled, but they didn't show us that. This is called a pictograph. It's a lot like a bar graph, except they have a picture to represent something. So in this case, one person, or a little figure of one person, represents 1 billion people. So in 1650, we had 500 million people. In 1850, we had 1 billion people. 1930, 2 billion people, okay? And now up to 2012, well, they projected it when they made this graph. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 billion people, and then they're projecting in 2070, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 billion people in the world, okay, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. So here's a bar graph. We've got our types of music. This must have been a poll, maybe, favorite types of music. The number of students that said they liked that particular type of music. In a bar graph, the bars do not touch. Okay, we'll talk about another type in a second. This is a double bar graph, so same thing, but now you're comparing the two right next to each other. So we got male and female color-coded for the Brown family, the Kildare family, the Roberts family, and the O'Hara family. Number of people in that family at a particular family reunion. This is a triple bar graph, and I also just picked one that was flipped on its side here, so you can see that it can also be drawn this way. So in this case, they were talking about the months of the year, and across the bottom they have the numbers. Transportation is color-coded in green, food in red, and then housing in blue. This is a stacked bar graph. Okay, I don't know if you can see the color difference from there, but there's a line separating here. Okay, so the bottom part is the mean temperature in January for these 4 regions, and the top is going to be the mean temperature in July. And what this does for you is now you get a total, okay, when you stack them. Okay, this is a bar graph, but it's also called specifically a histogram. This is where the bars are all touching. And the reason is because these are all in intervals. So this in particular is about the number of employees and what they're making. Okay, so 0 to $10,000, there's, looks like maybe 50 people are making that, okay? You pop over here, 33 to 43, okay, $1,000, 400 employees are making that. So between 43 and 44, there's nothing, so we don't put a space, because you're either making $43,999 or you're making $44,000. So we represent that by putting the bars so that they're touching. Okay, this is a box of whisker plot. This one was made on a graphing calculator, but you can still see groupings on this one. What this does is it lets you see the range. Like this is from about 59 to maybe, well, with our outlier here, about 105. This breaks it into percents. This is 25% of the data. This is 25% of the data. This is 25% of the data. And this is 25% of the data. So it's a little more spread out over here. Okay? And then this little guy shows that there's an outlier or one number that's way different than the rest of the data. This is called a frequency table. This is another good one for taking a poll. So if you're walking around and polling people, this one in particular is about weekly wages. And we just use tally marks as we're doing our poll. The frequency column is just adding up your tally marks. This is a stem and leaf plot. Usually it's tens and ones. That's what this in particular one is. We have a key that says 2 vertical line 1 means 21. So number of birds visiting the feeder, so 21 birds would have visited the feeder that day. So this means 15, 17, 19. This means 30, 30, 35, and then 37. It doesn't have to be tens and ones, but it usually is. It could be decimals, it could be big numbers like 1.5 million. We'll go into that a little more later, but just you can recognize that's a stem and leaf plot. This is a spreadsheet, so basically it's just your matrix, but it's a computerized version. So this one would be what? Well, if we look, we've got our 2 bars, okay, so this is going to be a double bar graph. It's not the best in that we don't have our label up the side, but it looks like it was maybe a computerized version. This one would be a triple bar graph, okay, because we've got our 3 different colors. It's all color coded over here, and again, not the best. We don't have a label here, we don't have a label here. This one is obviously a line graph, and we've got the 2 colors represented, so you can compare the 2 quite quickly. Okay. Another line graph. Okay. And this one I picked because it's a stacked bar graph, but it's tipped on its side, so I wanted you to be able to see what a stacked bar graph would look like on its side. Okay, that's it.